Now, for the benefit of this conversation, let's listen to some of the protocols as given by Transport Cabinet Secretary regarding the reopening of the various modes of public transport.
Let's cover the following. Public education, that is provision of timely and consistent COVID-19 information to enhance passenger safety. 2, the protocols also involve or include physical distancing, where physical distancing is not possible or feasible. Border adequate risk-based measures shall be used. The use of face masks is also covered in the detailed protocols. Routine sanitation, rapid health screening, and hand washing. Copies of those detailed protocols will be given to you. Let me say, because I think that question has been raised before, with regard to what kind of certification. What we shall do is between Minister of Transport, Minister of Health, and NTSA, we are developing a checkbox whereby there's a document which you highlight in summary what I've just said. Hand washing, fumigation, sanitation, covered within one checkbox, which will be produced between Minister of Health and NTSA, so that any vehicle, before it leaves these areas of Nairobi, Mombasa, which were previously at a cessation, they will be required to have that document. That document is being prepared today to make sure that from tomorrow we can have operators having that document going into our vehicles. And then when they get into the counties, the accountability, responsibility becomes that of the public health officers in the counties, in conjunction with the traffic police, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, to make sure that there is compliance on a continuous basis. Because what we don't want is to have one document done today, somebody goes tomorrow, they don't follow the procedures again. So they will be monitored on a regular basis. So it becomes almost like a driving license, that any public service vehicle must have that. It will be subject to instant supervision and inspection to make sure that they do carry that document wherever they go.
Well, yeah, the Cabinet Secretary there, Transport Ministry, speaking on some of the protocols and especially this certificate that seems to have elicited a lot of reactions from various operators. The question of compliance, Dr. Nanyingi, and you spoke about it earlier, enforcement and compliance of these protocols, because they could as well look very good on paper. But if we do not abide by them, then there's a problem. So how do we handle it? We have these protocols, enforcement seems to be an issue. There's already a question on slido.com on whether you think that these measures put in place and guidelines will yield fruit. All right, we seem to have lost Dr. Nanyingi. Are you able to hear me? All right, I think we are having issues with that, but seeing as we're speaking matters compliance, and that's where you left it off from Mr. Kimutai, there's a question on slido.com where someone says that they've severally entered a matatu and they're not seeing sanitizers. The operators have the face masks, but they're acting as chin guards. Have you had a conversation around compliance and enforcement, especially with these operators, and the need to follow these guidelines?
Well, you know, at times we fail to understand human beings. You'll not only hear of that, but you'll even hear passengers who are traveling, allowing themselves to compromise on social distance. This is supposed to be all of everybody's responsibility. There must be that personal agreement that you don't need to get this. And of course, we've had several complaints. And we could even see in the media people saying they don't believe that COVID-19 exists. I think we need to do a lot of public awareness, as the seers have put it. There must be a lot of sensitization. We don't wait until people get infected so that we can be able to talk. I'm on record having to say every time that this face mask is not a bow tie. It's a gadget that's supposed to prevent and protect you from contracting the virus. And one thing is that even if I sat not very far from a person who has put his face mask on the neck, it's my responsibility, personal responsibility, to tell the person, can he put it in the right place? Because the person could infect you. So I believe we don't have to be complainers only. We have to be people who can act when we see things are wrong. Because when a conductor, for instance, doesn't put his face mask in the right position, what is he supposed to, what is the other people supposed to do? We must tell him to do so. Otherwise, it's an issue of life and death. It might infect you. So it's important that everybody adheres to this. And I believe SACCOs have gotten the circular about the protocols, that this must be, their people must be educated on the protocols that have been put in place. So, and I think it's each one of us who are using the service to ensure that these things do happen. And we don't want blame games. We want action. If it's sanitizing, don't enter Matatu, which cannot sanitize you.
But
do not, because you'll be compromised with your position. Yes.
Before I go to our other panelists, but then what is the association doing to ensure that these various SACCOs and operators to ensure compliance in these vehicles?
We actually gave a circular on behavior, and that people have got to adhere to the protocols, and we circulated them everywhere. You know, there's one thing of telling people and them doing. And we have even partnered with some manufacturing company to provide us with sanitizers, and we distributed to some of our members. Unfortunately, it's not enough, but it's the responsibility of the SACCO to ensure that everybody gets, or rather people get sanitized before they embark on entering a vehicle. And other protocols must be observed. So, and it's good that we need to get complaints from passengers on way things are being done. Otherwise, as investors and as an association, we might not get information on how our people are behaving unless we have those using the service complain at the end of each journey on the same.
Let's speak to Mr. Kilavuka now. So we are reopening tomorrow for the local flights, 1st August for the international flights. You say we are ready. What will this mean in terms of the business?
Yeah, I think, first of all, just to support what Mr. Kimutai has said, you know, when it comes to enforcement of this protocol, it's very important for people to take personal responsibility. It is going to be impossible for Mr. Kimutai or the association, or in our case, every single one of us to police people. People have to take personal responsibility. This is very important, and that's what the government has been saying. Now, you asked what this means, resumption of flights. This is critical. You know, since we stopped flying more than 3 months ago, we have been losing, we estimate that so far we have lost close to 10 billion Kenya shillings. And if we estimate to the end of the year, we estimate that we'll lose about between 40 to 50 billion in revenue. And then, of course, there's no cash flow. So this resumption is important from that perspective. But it is also more important because, you know, Kenya Airways plays a facilitation role, just like other transport entities. So we transport people, we transport goods. We make sure that the economy is moving. We are a catalyst, a key catalyst. And even during this time, when we've been, during the cessation period, we've been trying to do our bit, especially the cargo piece, at reduced levels. So, moving, for example, meat from Kenya to the Middle East and supporting the pastoralists. We've been moving flowers, from Nairobi to Europe in particular, again, to move flowers and horticulture to support our farmers here. On top of which we have also been moving very critical PPEs from China to the African continent, to Kenya and to the other African countries. So now with this opening up, first of all locally, and then subsequently internationally, we will continue doing that even more. And then, more importantly, to now move people back to their homes and hopefully bring people into Nairobi and into Kenya and support the tourism industry, which has suffered a great deal. So our role, we see our role as a catalyst to economic development, and not just here in Kenya, but Africa-wide. So this is very important for us, and we are ready to play this role. So we're looking forward to tomorrow and subsequently to the 1st of August.
A question here on Twitter, Crispin Andare asks, will the air ticket be hiked? Speak to us about the pricing and what will dictate this.
So the air ticket has a lot of components. And it is true that the cost of travel is going to go up, that's for sure. Not just because we have all these measures that we're putting into place, but because the volume has also gone down. So the unit cost of travel goes up just because of that. And we've seen this across. Now, on the other hand, we also want to be very sensitive to our passengers and our customers because we also want to stimulate travel. So when we do the pricing of our tickets, we will take those things into account. But over and above that, what we want to do is to make sure that we are offering value for the cost of that ticket. And we've been busy during this lull period. We've been busy coming up with very compelling products. In fact, just one example is we're coming up with a very compelling product, particularly on the JKI route, that will encourage people to come into Nairobi particularly, and also help to boost the tourism industry. And you'll hear more of that, as we go along. So we are thinking about ways that we could add value to the products that we offer, so that even if there's going to be a slight increase in the price of the ticket, there's going to be value accompanying that price increase. But we'll do our best to keep our tickets low. The other thing also, internally what we want to do is to make sure that we come out of this a much more efficient, a leaner airline, so that we can have lower costs and pass that benefit to our passengers. That way we can sustainably grow and make sure that we are encouraging travel across not just Kenya, but also Africa and across the world.
Right, let's take a look at some of the reactions and questions we have. I'll start with Twitter. I'm seeing a question here from Nicholas Kibet, who says, kindly ask Mr. Musembi, now that the SGR has resumed its operations, what is the fate of over 2,000 SGR employees who are currently at home? When will they resume work? We'll have Mr. Musembi respond to that. We also have another question here on our Slido. Michael Wanaoni says, Dr. Mark Nanyingi, I've been regularly using matatus here in Nairobi. No sanitizers at entry points. Passengers have masks but acting as chin guards. Do you think these measures will bear fruit? Why is it so difficult to start temperature screening in all PSV vehicles? That's a question both Mr. Kemutai and Dr. Nanyingi will respond to. Josek Kwea Olala says, it's good to see the economy, especially the transport industry, opening. However, the policies and measures announced by the government are just being done in the boardrooms. Town service matatus in Nakuru have completely refused to comply with directives. Unfortunately, this is done in the eye of police. Let's take a last one before we go back to our panelists. An anonymous one here says, I'm worried of traveling in our public transport. Matatus plying Nyanza are carrying more than 14 passengers. Almost all do not embrace the masks, starting with the crew. Police are picking their usual. I am more concerned that this disease may just spread exponentially. How can we be helped? I think I'll start with Mr. Musembi, because there's a question directly to you on what happens to the employees who have been home now that we've reopened.
Thank you very much, Akisa. In terms of that particular question, that affects the service we are doing for commuter rail to Mombasa, which just launched yesterday. And you do recall that prior to COVID coming on board, we were doing 2 trains a day, morning and afternoon, and both ways Nairobi, Mombasa. By extension, we had, once we stopped service, we could not keep everybody at the station. It was better they be at home. In power with the government directive that everybody works from home. Now that we have relaunched, we have started with 1 service. And as we pick up, because even the customers need to get confidence in our ability to deliver them safely and come on board, and we will build on that. And as we get more of the numbers and we're able to roll back to our 2 services a day, we will of course take our people back. We also had people who are in the food service on the train. Currently, the MOH guidelines are such that we will not offer food service as we start. Again, that will mean there may be a bit of time before that happens, but we are confident that as we go and transition, we will get people back on board. But this aspect of employees cuts across both matatus, airlines, you name it. We all had challenges keeping everybody on board in this period, but we are confident that we will get everybody back on board.
What are the plans around the testing of operators? And I think this is a question all our panelists, especially in airline and public transport, matatus, will respond to. How do we intend to ensure that at all times we have operators or employees who are serving the passengers free of COVID-19? It's not an easy task. So what are some of the guidelines that have been put in place as far as this is concerned?
Well, for the part of railways, we have done testing for the staff as they're coming back on board, and we'll continue to do the same protocols as observed by restaurants and hotels to keep sure that our staff are safe. We're providing them with PPEs for whenever they're working and interacting with our customers, both at Nairobi and Mombasa. So we're going to monitor and throughout within guidelines of MOH and ensure that our staff are done that. But that is for our portion as Kenya Railways.
Right, we take a quick break. A lot of questions and comments. Will be coming back with the panelists on the 3rd bit of the front row. Continue to engage with us on slido.com. The hashtag is the front row as the login, as well as Twitter. The hashtag is the front row at KTN News, KE at Akisa Wandera. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with a conversation.
This is KTN